Now moving on to our next segment, we'll be looking in much more detail at advertising's role in the net zero economy, why change is needed now and how the industry can support businesses and people to build a more sustainable future. It is my pleasure to welcome Seb Munden, the chair of AdNet Zero. Seb, over to you.
Thanks, Neva. Good afternoon, for it is. I'm Sebastian Munden, everyone calls me Seb, and I'm the global chair of AdNet Zero. And I'm really pleased to be with you here today, talking about what we need to do this year in 2023. It must be clear to everyone, especially after COP27, that there is just the most massive gap between climate science and climate action, between what humans know and what humans are doing about it. And this is surely one of the biggest obstacles to progress. And we, in the advertising industry, all need to be getting on with it. In a way, the time for making promises is behind us, and we're now in the time for keeping promises, and that's where we all need to focus. And in our promises as agencies or media owners and those of advertisers and brands is a business opportunity, as well as an opportunity to make a big difference, the likes of which we've probably not seen before. For the economy, for society, and for the planet, we have in our hands here something very, very unusual. And we need to build a sense of urgency and immediacy. Landing material changes in the next couple of years in both the work we make and the way we work will be essential to have any chance that humanity can halve total global emissions by 2030. People around the world and at home are already experiencing the destructive impacts of unpredictable and freak climate events. And we need to get cracking and use our creativity to tackle the think-do gap. But before we go there, I'd like to give a massive thank you to all of you AdNet supporters, and hopefully persuade those of you who have not yet signed up that this is the moment to do so. It's amazing to see how this group has grown to over 100 supporters. And frankly, we're the supporters. You're the people who are making the difference. Since we initially launched in 2020. And I know from all of you that it's the sharing of best practice in a pre-competitive context above all that you value. At AdNet Zero, we offer a vision and a plan. The vision is a zero-carbon advertising industry by 2030, putting all its special powers of creativity and behavior change behind better choices, better products, better services, in short, better ways of living. To achieve these two outcomes, we must work hard on both of them right now. The 5 action points in the AdNet Zero plan are designed to guide everyone in the practical focus and next steps. I cannot underplay the pivotal role our industry could have in shaping social acceptability for sustainable innovation and new behavioral norms through the power of advertising. And we will need to be generous because everyone has to start somewhere, and demanding instant perfection is going to be the enemy of change. We need to live with the fact that we will not be totally consistent in our personal lives, and nor will other citizens or businesses. But in 2023, good intent and driving some better behavior change now is more important. So to help, we've come up with 5 things that people in our industry can easily do to take positive action and close that think-do gap. These would be, firstly, get our own house in order. Ensure the use of renewable energy suppliers as a prerequisite this year and adopt a travel policy with a more enlightened content. All of these things are highlighted in the AdNet Zero Do-It-Yourself guide. And make sure that all the main functions of your business are on the Green Leaders team, not just the sustainability experts. Secondly, use AdGreen to decarbonize advertising production. We heard about the possibilities of virtual sets and the revolution that that can have, by the way, in quality and cost. Sign up if this is your specialty for the additional training. It's creating the data through AdGreen and reviewing it that you create your company's action plan. Then we have 2 ways to get up to speed and generate head and heart energy for change. Thirdly, let's lead our teams through doing the AdNet Zero training together, which includes, by the way, the latest on the rules around greenwashing. Fourthly, leverage the massive amount of brilliant content created at the AdNet Zero Global Summit to kickstart thoughts and actions. Watch back some of the sessions on the Ad Association's YouTube channel and use them to provoke debate and behavior change with your colleagues. And finally, but probably most importantly, ramp up the number of campaigns you're involved in promoting sustainable products, services, and behaviors. Let's call time on storylines that promote pollution and waste. And prepare your best work to enter into this year's campaign AdNet Zero Awards. And the entries will open in the second quarter. And talking about the campaign AdNet Zero Awards, do take a look at the 22 winners for some inspiration. We received a fantastic response with 79 entries from 61 companies across 21 different categories. These awards recognize and celebrate our industry's best work tackling the climate emergency, aiming to change the way we work and the work we make. Sky Media was one of the winners in the media category for the Sky Zero Footprint Fund, making sustainable attainable. A £2 million advertising fund supporting businesses to inspire others to join the journey to net zero carbon. And to tell us more about it, I'd like to invite Sarah Jones, Director of Planning at Sky Media, and the 2022 winners, Chris Baker and Martin McAllister, founders of Serious Tissues. Welcome, everybody. So Sarah, starting with you, so just give us a bit of background on how the Zero Footprint Fund came about and what was your aim?
Sure. So, hi everybody. So Sky have been doing a lot of work in sustainability for, 15 years now. It feels like a long time ago, but from, changing the business, our offices, huge organisation, the supply chain, and also campaigning. So campaigns like Sky Ocean Rescue are, have been really, really significant in helping tackle climate change. Probably about 2.5, 3 years ago now, we wanted to see what we could do from an advertising perspective. As you've just said, everybody knows advertising's got the power to change people's behaviour. So why not use advertising to help tackle climate change?
Oh, very good. So tell us a bit about the criteria for winning. Sort of advantage for everyone who's shown up today. What does it take to win a slug of that £2 million?
So, there's 3 main things, really. The first is authenticity. So make sure you don't have lots of carbon skeletons in your closet. We will check out all the businesses that enter. And we saw we had 80 or so entries this year and last year, actually. And, there are many skeletons in closets. So number 1, make sure you check out as a business and you are actually sustainable rather than doing stuff around the edges. Number 2, be able to demonstrate the impacts you can make. Again, we saw entries from brands that weren't likely to be used by millions of people, or potentially were a bit optional, or even that wouldn't necessarily have a huge carbon positive impact. So impact is really, really important. And then thirdly, and really importantly for this audience, is creativity. So making sure that you absolutely smash the idea out of the park, so people that watch the ad on TV actually stand up and take notice. And then, kind of within that, make sure your ad's produced in a sustainable way.
Authenticity, impact, compelling,
Creativity.
creative.
Exactly.
Doesn't that sound just like what Dougie was talking about earlier? So tell us then, who won this year and why? So you have smaller prizes and then the big prize. Obviously, Serious Tissues here won the big prize. But
Yeah, sure. So the way the £2 million fund works is we have the first round where you get as many entries in, and we filter that down to ultimately to a final 5, and each of those 5 is guaranteed 250 grand's worth of media value, which goes a really long way at Sky. £1 million goes even further. So 250 grand guaranteed, and then basically the 5 brands go away, make their creative, so they actually make their ad, pitch it to our brilliant judging panel. So we've got people like Stephen, we've got Karen Blackett, Sir John Hegarty on the panel. So the 5 brands pitch their final ad, and then one of them gets awarded the £1 million.
fantastic. And going forward, we're going to see more awards in future years?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really committed to this from a Sky perspective. We're just planning Sky Zero Footprint Fund 3.0, can I say that? So it's the 3rd year this year. For this year, really, there's a couple of things that we're looking for. One is bigger brands. You've got loads of brands that are partnered with AdNet Zero. We certainly didn't get entries from all those brands over the last couple of years. So we'd really like to see some bigger brands enter. While it's a brilliant catalyst for smaller brands to grow, we think the opportunity for bigger brands to make a difference with the scale of their customer base is also really, really exciting in terms of the bigger prize, which is how can we tackle climate change. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is we'd like to just see different types of categories enter as well. So in particular, 3 areas that we think are really important in this space are fashion. So, how do you tackle fast fashion? Food, food waste is a huge problem. So how can we tackle that? And then also technology. E-waste is, again, an absolute disaster area and one that's growing. So, fashion, food, technology, anybody who's got
brands out there in those spaces who you're making a difference, sign up, get your entry pencil sharpened.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when's the deadline for entries for 2023?
So we're not open yet. We'll open towards the end of March, beginning of April. There's then roughly a 6 to 8 week window for people to write their entries. And then, following that, it's another couple of months till we get to the final 5.
Fabulous. So why don't we look at the film that won? So this is Serious Tissues.
Is that a naked protester?
Yep. Up to 15% of deforestation is for toilet paper.
I don't want to be Lou Roll.
Absolutely not.
But hang on. Serious Tissues don't cut down trees.
They don't.
In fact, they plant trees instead.
They do.
Trees like you and me.
Yeah.
And Big Al.
The legend.
Colonel Conker.
Good man.
Hello. So, why don't you just tell him to switch to Serious Tissues?
Because we're trees, Nigel. Trees can't talk.
Fantastic. So, Sarah, thank you very much. So I'd like to turn to Chris and Martin,
Hello.
the smiling faces of Serious Tissue. So I guess, Chris, how did Serious Tissue start?
So rewinding back a few years, Martin and my background is in advertising, mine in strategy, Martin in creative. About 7 years ago, we worked on the launch of a coffee brand called Change Please, which is all about helping homeless people off the streets by training them as baristas. And the 4 of us that had worked on that had this thought that there's a huge opportunity in driving these small changes in consumer behavior that can have a really big impact. So whether that's not going to Starbucks and buying your coffee from Change Please and helping someone off the street, or changing your toilet roll brand from something made of virgin pulp to something made of recycled paper like ours, has the potential to have a massive, massive impact. So we took this opportunity and just felt that we could take this to any category. So first cab off the rank was toilet roll. Between the 4 of us who founded it, we've got 8 kids at the time of launch, 8 under 8. So we were like, we really want to do something about future generations and climate change. So we launched Serious Tissues in April 2020, and it's grown very quickly in that time. it just recently launched into Ocado, speaking to other supermarkets. Obviously, the Sky win at the back end of last year was absolutely transformational for us and hugely exciting about how that's going to work this year.
But when I think I'm also like the chair of WRAP, the Waste and Resources Action Programme, and I always despair of kind of the scale of impact. And so how would you say, your brand is still quite young, but it is still quite small. So how would you really have serious category impact, do you think?
Yeah, so look, in those 2 years, we've planted 1.5 million trees, so it's not an insignificant impact. Every year, around 10 million trees are cut down for toilet roll, so being at 1.5 million in a couple of years isn't bad. If we were to get 1% of the UK's toilet roll market, we'd be planting over 10 million trees every year. So just by getting a 1% share, that's a really substantial difference in actually replacing those 10 million trees that are cut down.
So your share of trees is way higher than your share of market?
It is, yeah. But as we get into other supermarkets, like I think if we unlock a relationship with Tesco, for instance, if we got less than 1% of that, we'd be over 1 million trees just from one decision. So there's big opportunities for it to grow exponentially, but starting from something, the humble toilet roll, starting from something small.
If I can add one thing to that, I think it's not even necessarily about our own impact. I think even by being a small player in one category, you can become a catalyst. If you start to win market share off of a Kimberly-Clark brand, off an SD brand, they're already looking over their shoulder. It makes them have to think about, do we need to bring forward our shift out of plastic packaging? Because we know from Kantar research that's the biggest indicator for shoppers on aisle. Do we have to start looking at more sustainable practices because we're getting our lunch eaten by smaller brands? So I think our hope is that, it would be great if all the sales are coming to us, but it's also nice to be a catalyst and help move those things forward.
Yeah. And I suppose a lot of advertising, Martin, around brands is kind of, if you like, despite the product. But you had this golden opportunity, in a way, to have a hand in creating and sourcing the product, probably stretching your supply chain skills to the limit. But just talk a little bit about that and what that experience was like.
Yeah, well, listen, it's been an enormous learning curve getting into the murky world of toilet roll. What child doesn't dream of a toilet roll empire? So we've been, that's been a huge learning curve to get into, but to come back to probably where our core skills lie with our background in advertising, being able to have a comms proposition that ladders directly back into a brand proposition and a product proposition is huge. Over the years, both Chris and I have worked on so many things where it's a kind of little addendum at the end. There's a white goods brand or a skylight company who want to say something good, but it's become slightly disjointed from what their core offering is. So for us to be able to draw that straight line through and it not just be aligned to purpose, but actually aligned to action, I think for us is massive. But also the game is the same as it ever was. Like, be entertaining, say it in a fun way. Exactly like Sarah's talking about, like the power of creativity on TV is still huge. You can't just come out and wear these things like a hair shirt. You've got to say it in a way that people want to listen.
And that was interesting at the last Net Zero Global Summit. We did a little review of the history of sustainability advertising, and it singularly failed to move the needle for the vast majority of the population when it was sort of gloom and doom and polar bears on icebergs. And it really changed kind of when it started to feel immediate and real and personal. But I think also out of this story, a big shout out also to marketeers out there, which is, roll your sleeves up and get into your supply chain. Don't try and solve the world just through advertising. Back it up through your supply chain, and let's see kind of end-to-end change.
Yeah, I think that was the, obviously coming from the marketing side, not having done supply chain and clearly not in toilet roll, that was the thing that was probably most daunting. But I think the adage we looked at was perfection is the enemy of progress. So we've worked hard to find great suppliers of the product. We've been through a couple of different ones over the course of the 2 years. The guys we're with now are third biggest in the country behind ST and Kimberly-Clark. So really robust, really good supply chain. But if we're able to do plastic-free packaging and wrap our toilet roll in paper, why can't the massive brands do it? If we're able to be carbon neutral, why can't the other brands do it? So I think probably the important thing with that is we've got that kind of blank sheet of paper, so we're not protecting a massive margin, or we're not having to placate shareholders yet. So we have that, the opportunity in their margin to be able to take some share.
Great. Well, thank you both very much. And so the call is out there. Enter your best work into the AdNet Zero Awards, sponsored by Campaign, and also into the Sky next iteration of the Zero Footprint Fund. We really can make a massive difference. And I hope this example and the others that have won will inspire everyone to enter, but also, of course, to use AdNet Zero as a resource. It is about pre-competitive collaboration, and it's here to help every one of us, as well as every company. So remember, it can support you in your job, accelerate in 2023 by taking some very concrete actions. And I think if you want to really make a difference, you've got to start imperfectly. You will not be totally consistent in everything you do. But I think in 2023, we need to make every ad in as green a way as possible by greening the way we work, but also making more work about green products and services. So I hope you've found inspiration and you'll go back and do just that. Thank you. Well done.